message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Evolution of Now, a podcast where this week we're actually going to be just recounting a few of the main headlines of the week. My name is Christopher Robinson. I am here with my esteemed colleagues, Aubrey Steinberger, right? Did I get that right? How's it going?
Yes, you did.
Hey.
I'm good.
And we're also joined here by Jordan Speed. How are you doing, man?
Man, don't say my name. I got warned.
Oh my God! I'm sorry. I just blew up your spot. I'm so sorry, Jordan. I mean,
God, you just
what do we need to call you, man?
Person.
Like,
come on, you have to edit that out.
Justin Long. Maybe that's what we should call you. Would that be better?
I'll take it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm clean. I'm okay. You know, I feel like we've been, aside from there's mourning within the U.S. I think I'm personally thinking of Aretha Franklin, but
oh, sorry.
But I mean, of course, there's some others who there are some other major deaths.
Did you see that creepy video of that preacher at Aretha Franklin's funeral that was just feeling up that woman on stage with him?
I couldn't even watch it. It was Ariana Grande.
I did not see that.
Oh, yeah, it was Ariana Grande. Yeah, that was so creepy. Apparently he apologized afterwards, but we're all just sitting here going,
what?
What made you think that was okay?
You know it's creepy? Well, I just seen a picture and I went, ugh. I didn't see the video.
And she's obviously like arching her back and trying to get away from him, but she's trying not to make it too obvious because she's on fucking camera.
Wait a minute. This preacher guy was like feeling her up? What?
Basically.
Oh my God. I did not see any of that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I saw the video on Facebook earlier. I wish I'd saved the link. But yeah.
Jeez.
It was pretty.
Oof. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah. Rest in power, Aretha.
Yeah. She's another one that bit the dust this week, I guess. And there's been a lot of people that have been dying in these last few weeks and months. It's been crazy. But not least of which is one that we're going to be talking about this week. Like I said, we're not going to have a actual topic this week like we usually do. We've had a lot of us here at Tion headquarters have been having a lot of things to deal with in our regular everyday lives. So we just didn't have a lot of time this week to really research in the ways that we wanted to. But one person that did die this week that we all have a little bit to say about, to say the least, is Mr. John McCain had died this week. I have a little bit about his history leading up to him in politics that I want to get to. I don't know if you guys wanted to chime in before I got to that with any talk about Mr. McCain and his legacy.
Just that I think it's kind of gross how many Democrats are just whitewashing his entire history just because in the last couple months of last year of his life, he essentially was anti-Trump. Okay.
He saved Obamacare, Tensai. Does this not matter to you?
That doesn't erase the fact that he was a horrible person.
And by the way, he voted in conjunction, basically, with the wills of Donald Trump 85% of the time. Mm-hmm. Around there, at least. If it's not 85% of the time.
Tax cuts.
Yeah. He was in favor of 80 to 90% of what Donald Trump was in favor of. So let's be clear on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He told the party line for sure. I think what is unfortunate is is that I think that what we expect out of politicians have gotten so, the bar has been set so low that John McCain does come out looking very favorable within his legacy. I do think there are certain aspects within his legacy that I do respect, but I think in terms of his overall performance in Congress, I can't. I don't condone. I don't condone it, and I don't accept it. I think it was very problematic, and he had. I mean, he was a huge supporter. He was very hawkish, and when it came to foreign policy, he was a supporter of not of going to war with Iraq and
Everybody.
with Iraq and Afghanistan. Yes, exactly.
He wanted to go to war with everyone.
Exactly. I think there are only like a handful of topics or a handful of issues where he took a stronger stance against. I think in particular would be torture, and that only comes from the fact that he has a very personal relationship with it based off of his history. That I truly do respect him for.
Yeah.
But
I guess I did want to get to that eventually, because I do have some bullet points here on his early life into his being captured by the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. And that did very much shape his thinking when it came to torture. I guess if you guys are okay with it, maybe we can get into his early years and then go into his Vietnam years and everything.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, go for it.
So he was born in 1936. His name, John Sidney McCain III.
You're taking it that far back, huh?
Yeah.
We're going all the way back.
Right?
Well, I mean, we gotta set the scene a little bit, I mean. But
okay.
He's John Sidney McCain III. His father, John Sidney McCain Jr., and Roberta Wright McCain were his parents. His father and his grandfather were both admirals in the U.S. Navy. And so, obviously, when you have such a legacy, John McCain joined the Navy as well. He graduated in 1958 from the Navy Academy with low class ranks, actually. And part of the reason why he scored kind of low was he did really poorly when it came to obeying the rules of higher ranking personnel. He was, I guess you could call him a maverick. But yeah, he was he regularly got marked for that reason. He eventually did become a Navy aviator, basically a pilot in the Navy. But he wasn't very good at piloting, since he crashed twice in his missions in the mid-60s. I believe at this time he was stationed in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, specifically. And so he crashed twice, and he also collided with power lines in another incident that he had. So he was really doing very well when it came to piloting. But yeah, he eventually got a little bit better at piloting. And in 1965, he married Carol Shep, his very first wife. She was a model in Philadelphia, and she had two sons, Douglas and Andrew. After they got married, they had another child, and her name was Sydney, I guess after the middle name of the family thus far, John Sidney McCain and all that, So they named her Sydney. After that point, he requested combat assignment by the Navy, and maybe he just couldn't take the pressures of home life and raising children, and so he was like, "Please give me assignment, please, God, get me out of this house." I don't know, but
combat pay actually gets you you get paid better in combat if you're in a combat role.
Yeah, that could be it too.
So, I mean, my brother actually wanted, when he was in the Navy, he wanted a combat position simply for that reason.
Yeah. But after that point is when he actually got stationed in Vietnam. He was first assigned to the USS Forrestal, and unfortunately, the USS Forrestal had a Forrestal fire. But Mr. John McCain actually was in the center of this because it was actually his jet that caught fire originally. And he did try and save a fellow pilot, but one of the bombs on the plane itself exploded in the process.
Miss the landing on the carrier?
I guess I didn't read too far into it. All I know, from what I read at least, was that there was a jet fire. It was his jet that caught fire, and while he was trying to save a fellow pilot, a bomb exploded. 134 sailors had died. He suffered some wounds in shrapnel, but the USS Forrestal was decommissioned because it was really really messed up at that point because like that fire grew and it was a mess. McCain himself only had small injuries that he came back from, and he joined the USS Oriskany. I don't know actually exactly how to say that, but he then was shot down in 1967. During the process of him being shot down, he both broke his arm. I can't speak. He broke both of his arms and one of his legs during the ejection process out of his plane. He then landed in a lake and nearly drowned. Luckily, and maybe unluckily, the North Vietnamese pulled him from the water and then beat the shit out of him after he had just broken both of his arms and a leg. And one of the soldiers actually beat him, broke his arm further, hit him in the shoulder with the butt of his rifle, thus crushing it. And then he also stabbed him with a bayonet. And he was then brought to Hoa Lo prison, which was also nicknamed the Hanoi Hilton. I guess it was a very rough prison to be put into. He did not actually he did not get any treatment for any of his wounds for a while. They interrogated him until eventually they found out that he was actually the son of one of the admirals of the U.S. Navy at the time. And then at that point, they gave him marginal care at a hospital. And what they were trying to do at the time, the North Vietnamese wanted to use him sort of as propaganda as a bargaining chip going forward. And so they actually confined him in solitary confinement for 2 years. And in that time, he was beaten, and they used torture in this time to get him to release an anti-American propaganda apology, basically denouncing the what America had been doing there in Vietnam and all that. And due to the torture, basically, he eventually broke down and said whatever the hell they wanted him to say. And after this point, though, things didn't really this didn't really help the North Vietnamese all that much. But he was eventually released in 1973. He was a prisoner of war for 5 years, 5.5 years, really. And in 1979, McCain met and began dating his second wife, Cindy Lou Hensley. I think I might be going through this a little bit too fast. After he got out of the war in 1973, he was stationed in Florida in 1976, and he started actually a long line of extramarital affairs. And then in 1979 was when he met Cindy Lou Hensley. She was an heiress to a large beer distributor fortune, and they hit it off, and they started dating, and then he requested a divorce from his wife, his current wife at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, why would you stick with, whatever her name was when you could date an heiress?
Yeah. I mean, she had money and she was probably attractive. I don't know, but like, it's interesting. And he finally tries to divorce his wife after all these affairs, and then finally finding one that he actually was interested in a relationship. Just family values, though, guys. Family values. He's a Republican. That is like the cornerstone of Republican values, isn't it? Is family values, and this guy
they like to claim this
anyway. Well, of course, but yeah,
right. It's to their detriment because, like, I don't care.
Yeah,
it's like if you just didn't care, then it would be an issue. But you make it so damn important.
I mean, it is kind of crappy for someone to cheat on their spouse like this and everything. That's really, really messed up, to be honest. But like, regardless, he did cheat on her. They did eventually marry in 1980. Surprisingly, McCain's children, 2 of which were actually not his own, but his first wife's children before him. And 2 of those children, understandably, did not attend the wedding of him and Cindy. I can't entirely understand why they might be so upset with Mr. McCain. But, that happened. They did get an uncontested divorce, him and his first wife, Carol. I guess, supposedly from what I was reading, they had a very a friendly divorce in some ways. They were not like animosity, like there was no animus between the two, but yeah, that happened. And then eventually he realized that he was never going to become an admiral like his daddy and his grandfather. So he left the Navy. So where was he going next? To become a politician, of course. I mean, what else would you become at this time? That's the next best thing, right? And so, yeah, after that, he became a politician. What do you guys think about that? Nice little synopsis of his historic times.
You did good.
I tried to do as best as I can there, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I omitted some things and missed some things that happened, but yeah.
Don't be too hard
that was the gist of it.
Yeah, no, certainly. I learned some stuff.
Yeah. I distilled it as best as I could.
Very informative. I mean, I personally don't take too much. I don't take too much stock in a politician's personal life necessarily. It all depends. I mean, if it comes to like spousal abuse, yes, or domestic abuse, or if it it has to do with children in any way,
yeah,
that I do care about. But when it comes to like the I don't know, just extramarital affairs and things of that nature, it doesn't necessarily complete the picture of someone for me.
Maybe,
but
part of my problem with it is because I have been cheated on, and it hurts. It really, really hurts, and it's really impossible to deal with when you're being cheated on. It's really tough, man. Like,
yeah,
I
understand.
You're at a point where you love this person, but like they're doing this horrible thing to you. This horribly
to be honest, you don't know necessarily how she felt about it.
That's very true.
Maybe. I'm sure.
So maybe she felt like you did, or maybe she was just kind of like, am I finally going to get out of this marriage?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, everyone's situation is different. And
yeah. In my case, obviously I always acknowledge my faults and everything. And I know I messed up in our relationship, but I mean, it's still, it's really, you don't cheat on someone though.
This mostly took place before no fault divorce.
Yeah.
So, from what I understand, so I mean, in that case, maybe they needed to have him cheating on her in order to actually get a divorce.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, I mean, I think in terms of his overall legacy, once again, John McCain, he was a conservative. I think there are only what sets him apart to me personally is the fact that okay, John McCain did have decorum. I admit, I accept that, and it does harken back to the old school days of politics here in the U.S. And of course, his time.
Iran.
Well, yeah.
Remember when he sang that on TV?
Right.
He had decorum.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I said earlier in the show that he was hawkish. And boy, do I mean hawkish. So and of course, like you going over his military history, Chris. It's like, yeah, that guy, and I think is actually a trait amongst many military men turned politicians. Where it's like they are just notoriously hawkish. And I think the only thing that set him apart is that his experience in Vietnam and how that shaped his view on torture. That was really big. But unfortunately, it took I mean, I don't know what side he would have came out on if he didn't experience that. But unfortunately, when it comes to many conservatives, it takes a personal experience for them to actually to be on the right side of a certain issue. And so, and I'm not necessarily that's his case, but that's a trait that I see in a lot of those politics. But yeah, I mean, look, is it sad? Look, I don't want anyone. I hate the idea that he went the way that he went.
I look at it kind of like, yeah, that's kind of a really bad way to die. But at the same time, I didn't know him. Why on earth would I mourn him? Mm-hmm. I can feel a bit sorry for his family, you know, but at the same time, him dying of brain cancer is really no different to me than some random person I don't know dying of brain cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I will say, though, one person at least that did not go the same way as Mr. McCain and being like super pro-war after being a veteran was John Kerry. He was very much opposed to war after his serving in the Vietnam War. He was also a veteran, and he was one of the people that threw away his medals at the time because he was making an actual a political stand on it, because like he was very much opposed to the war and what it stood for, and that's what he was trying to convey with his protest with his medals. But
yeah, I would also say that Vietnam vets, with a few exceptions, one of which was McCain, who got a lot of publicity and press, and he was cheered a lot, they were treated horribly. A lot of them were denied service at the VA. My roommate's dad, he fought in Vietnam. In order to prove that he was actually a veteran, he had to actually find his medals from Vietnam and show them.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, because apparently, it's just a huge mess, and so many of them were basically denied any kind of coverage. So for the first time, I mean, just this last year, he's finally been able to actually go to the VA and get treatment at the VA.
Jeez.
That's huge, for an elderly man.
And that's so true. And what's interesting too is that, and I think maybe that shaped some of McCain's views, because he was actually proud of his of America's involvement, or in Vietnam. He I mean, to the day that he died, he was one of those. He was someone who believed that was worth the fight. So and of course I do think his personal involvement in there is a huge reason for that belief. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I learned a lot about McCain around this time. You hear so much about them, but you don't really know too much about them. And I felt like I finally got some perspective on who John McCain was, and look, John McCain, he was somebody who a lot of people cared about. He was deeply cared for, of course, and apparently his approval rating is amongst partisan individuals have him more favorable in the eyes of Democrats than he is Republicans, specifically because of his opposition, mostly verbal opposition towards Donald Trump, and that's going to play a huge part within his legacy. It is what it is. I don't necessarily it. It doesn't affect me too much, but yeah, that's on its face. That's going to be a huge chapter within John McCain's legacy, is his verbal opposition to Donald Trump. And so yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's kind of also, I don't really know how to put this, but there's a lot of pretending like he was a great guy and a friend to all Democrats, despite literally all the evidence to the contrary. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's like they don't remember the 2008 election at all.
The bar is so low.
I know. And it's just like, people going on and on about how, John McCain, he was wonderful, he was amazing. And I'm just like, are you a Democrat? Because you don't sound like one. And I mean, it's just, for fuck's sake, he voted, and then like people are like, oh no, he can't be racist because he voted against, or he adopted a daughter from Bangladesh. He has a black daughter. And it's just like, that doesn't prove that he's not racist.
Right.
It's like saying Ben Carson can't be racist because, he's black.
Right.
Or at least support racist policies. And for fuck's sake, John McCain voted against Martin Luther King Jr. Day. At a point in time when it was literally the only reason you would vote against Martin Luther King Jr. Day was if you wanted to signal to your racist base that you've got their back.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
Yeah. These politicians, they have to be. If they truly want to have the legacy of someone who.
But my point is, because by that point in time, there was literally, even Republicans had adopted MLK Jr. as one of them and proof that they're not actually racist or whatever. And, you've seen the gaslighting and stuff that happens every MLK Jr. Day. But it's just, there was literally, the only way there was a bad vote there politically was to vote against it. Mm-hmm. And he voted against it.
Right.
Which either says something about him or it says something about who he thought his base is.
Right.
It was about the principle of it, man. We can't just keep giving out random holidays for everyone that does something good.
Apparently.
Well, yeah. I don't know. That might be the argument that I could easily hear out of him and his ilk, honestly. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. They got 1,000,001 reasons why they can't do the right thing.
99 problems. It's just sad.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, certainly. Well,
yeah.
best to the McCain family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In closing.
Yeah. And I got nothing against them. Maybe except Meghan McCain, just because she's so stupid and obviously got her career off of her father's politics. But,
Yeah.
The rest of them, I don't know who they are. I don't care who they are. They deserve their privacy, particularly when they're mourning.
Certainly.
I have no problem with that. And my problems with Meghan McCain have nothing to do with the fact that her father just died. Taking shots at her over his death is ridiculous and petty.
Yeah, you would do a year round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just wait for her to say something stupid on The View again. Not that I even watch it, but every now and then it pops up because somebody I followed was talking about it.
Yeah. It is helpful that he is against Trump, I suppose, in some ways, but yeah, it's really not the only thing that matters,
Hey,
his whole legacy.
He got two things right. He doesn't like Trump, and he was good on torture.
Yeah.
Way to go.
And I think I think his dislike for Donald Trump is very interesting because he had a very interesting position within the whole the Russian investigation process, or the whole Trump and his possible involvement with the Russian government, which is very interesting because John McCain was the first politician who was brought the information within the dossier, because he had connections towards certain investigators who were involved within that.
Well, I would point out John McCain ran for president in 2008. If the Russians have been making a habit of reaching out to Republicans or to Democrats in past presidential campaigns, he'd be perfectly positioned to know about it through the grapevine. I mean, we got the DNC emails leaked. We've never seen the RNC emails. I guarantee you there's a hell of a lot of collusion going on in those.
So,
don't worry about those.
And not just with Russia either. I guarantee you Israel, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates.
With those, though, both sides are getting that easily. I know. Both sides are very much pro-Saudi Arabia, pro-Israel, pro-United Arab Emirates. So you're not going to get a...
My point is, I'm pretty sure that's probably much worse than the DNC emails.
Probably.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. I feel strongly about that, too.
Yeah. With John McCain's legacy as a politician, though, very much was a pro-war person in the House and the Senate. I don't think he ever found a war.
He did not win the 2008 election.
Yeah. I don't think there was a war that he didn't want to have a premarital affair with, personally. But,
Jesus.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's just, that's John McCain for you, though.
Wow.
He was an adulterer, and he loved war, even though he was very much principally against torture, thankfully.
On the one hand, if he had won in 2008, it's very possible that he might have prosecuted people in the Bush administration that did torture.
Oh yeah,
that is very true.
Which Obama did not.
Yeah.
There was actually a video that I just recently saw from Secular Talk. He actually had a clip of John McCain on Fox News with Bill O'Reilly, and they were talking about waterboarding. John McCain definitely saw waterboarding as torture, and he even brought up a good point where there was actually a time when America actually put to death some, I believe it was either Chinese or Japanese, I forget who it was, but they put them to death for waterboarding some of our soldiers.
Oh,
and so
Japanese.
It was Japanese then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we put to death people that waterboarded some of our soldiers because it was torture. And now, all of a sudden, we're talking about this being enhanced interrogation? Get the fuck out of here with that. It's not enhanced interrogation. It's torture. Let's be honest on these terms. Yeah. So, at least he was really staunchly opposed to torture. I can give him that. But he was very much pro-war, and he committed a lot of adultery. Let's be honest. So, I mean...
I don't care. Whatever.
All right.
But anyway, that's his legacy that I see, at least. So
I mean, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I think that's...
let's move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about. So remember, I think it was last week I talked about Molly Tibbetts.
Yeah.
and how people were using her death as an excuse to target illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, whichever term you prefer. Honestly, I go back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
Apparently, just a few days after it was announced who her killer was, people in Iowa started getting robocalls from a group calling themselves, let's see if I can find the name here, the Road to Power, which is a neo-Nazi group based in Idaho.
I was going to ask you if it was the KKK, but I guess it's close enough.
No. But apparently there's a lot of really nasty stuff on there, including one quote here that says, "If after her life has now been brutally stolen from her, she could be brought back to life for just one moment and asked, 'What do you think now?' Molly Tibbetts would say, 'Kill them all.'"
Wow, just completely putting words into a dead woman's mouth. Holy shit, man, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Jesus, man.
There's a lot of stuff like that in there. I mean, mind you,
unbelievable bastards. Holy shit.
I think it's her father said at her funeral, the Hispanic community are Iowans. They have the same values as Iowans. You know.
Do they?
So, her family has been very much supportive of the Latino community, as well as saying, please do not use her death for your politics. We don't share your politics, etc., stuff like that.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not sure if it gained traction, but as far as I know, I don't believe it has. But there have been an attempt to nationalize the story and turn it into, a reason for border-related reasons. And
we're gonna build a wall. It's gonna be big league.
Right, exactly. And Trump also he tweeted about it, trying to nationalize it. And but I think not having the parents,
the support of the family,
exactly, that affected their attempt. And it's also
resulted in people attacking them online and harassing and bullying them online.
Yeah.
Well, naturally, it's fake, right? These are crisis actors, according to people like Alex Jones and shit.
I don't even know what the rationale for that is.
There's always going to be people that are going to be angry and stupid these days, and it's just
So it was just it's really nasty. But the police unfortunately say their hands are tied because of First Amendment issues, because freedom of speech. And they simply said, treat this like any other robocall. Ignore it and hang up.
Yeah.
So.
That is really messed up, though, that they would do something like that. And especially to try and, start, putting words into the dead person's mouth. Holy shit, man. If she were alive today, she would say, kill them all. Like, what? Are you effing kidding me, guys? It's just ridiculous. You sons of bitches, man.
That's...
unbelievable bastards.
Right. And I mean, we can go all day about the contradiction and inaccuracies within these kind of groups, but I mean, it's just so obvious where it's like the atrocities that have happened over the course of history. I mean, it could have been. I mean, anyone within those times could have said that exact same thing, and it could, and I'm glad that, and even if people have, I'm glad that they didn't take that kind of rhetoric seriously. I mean, it's just ridiculous and so silly, and they're just grasping onto whatever strings that they have nearby.
Yeah. They have a political agenda, and they're going to use every opportunity they get to push it. But in the process, they're ignoring the actual problem behind Molly's death, which was that there is a certain subset of men that feel that violence is an acceptable response to being told no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And in that same vein, also this week in Oklahoma, a 14-year-old boy repeatedly stabbed a girl because she told him she only liked him as a friend.
Yep, that's what it's come to.
Yep. He didn't even talk to her. They had advanced. She had apparently rejected his advances previously, and so on, I think it was Monday, he just walked in, didn't say anything to her, and just stabbed her
Repeatedly.
in the middle of school assembly repeatedly.
Wow.
In the face, arms, and hands, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm guessing he kept on trying to stab her, and she had to try and block herself with her arms and hands, and he started just stabbing her there. It's just
schoolmates
disgusting.
and teachers actually managed to pin him against a wall. But yeah. An Oklahoma advocacy group is now calling for the passage of a bill called Lauren's Law.
Mhm.
The bill, which would enact mandatory sexual consent and relationship communication education in Oklahoma schools, failed to pass in the state's last legislative session. So I guess they're trying again now. So yeah.
Wow. Wait, so that
Oh wait, no. Oh, I see. The bill is named for Lauren Atkins, who says she was raped at a high school party in 2014 and was surprised to learn that the teen she says raped her after she'd been drinking did not know what consent is. So that's the actual law. So it didn't pass in the last legislative session.
What
So
state was this again? You're saying? I'm sorry. Oklahoma. I would wonder what their sex education system is like. If it's just like, abstinence only, or if they actually talk.
Yeah.
Because this is the problem, guys. This is the problem when all we're talking about is, well, you can't tell these kids about sex. Only abstinence. That's the only thing that matters. They don't learn everything that they need to learn about these situations. And these kids can be dumb. And, they don't realize that, consent is an actual thing. It's just that should be a thing that should be taught to anyone in these situations, and I guess they just don't here in Oklahoma, and it's
Well, and it's also they don't really teach that in sex eds generally. I don't think.
Yeah.
Even your more comprehensive sex ed classes probably don't even barely touch on the subject, because they're there to talk about the actual act and instruct you in the various hows, whys, and how to do it safely.
Yeah. I don't remember what my sex education was like anymore. It was way too long ago for me to remember. Do you remember at all, Jordan? What they did they ever touch on consent?
Did they touch on
if you
consent?
remember at all? I know I can't remember. But
I want to say yes, but the one thing that sticks out more to me, they did kind of they did highlight the act of having sex, how it works, of course, how to put on a condom, things of that nature. So it was sort of implied that you guys are going to have this. Here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to hide anything from us, and that's why I think that the idea of consent was covered as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is just probably because
who knows? Although you clearly don't remember what kind of detail they went into either.
Yeah.
So
and also, it's the thing is sex education is more of a state situation. The federal government does not go into it, so therefore, state by state, they do things differently.
Even district by district, it can change and alter. I mean, I was exempted from sex ed, so I have no idea what was taught.
Oh, great.
Parents, because they send home a permission slip, and if the parents don't sign it, then the kid doesn't go through sex ed.
Yeah.
My parents refused to sign the permission slip. They didn't want me to know anything about it.
And this is sometimes why a federal program actually makes sense. It shouldn't be the case that children in, let's say, New Jersey may have a more comprehensive sex education than children from Oklahoma. It shouldn't be the case that kids over there don't even know what consent is, and then over here, kids might actually understand that.
You can even track the teen abortion and teen pregnancy rates correlate pretty much directly to how comprehensive their sex ed is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, last I heard, Texas was number one in repeat teen pregnancies, as in people who became pregnant twice when they were teenagers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still the case. That was a stat from like 2 years ago, but yeah, I think Alabama or Mississippi was number one in teen pregnancies in general.
Mm-hmm. I think what's preventing us from having a standard is like the ethos of this country, and I think
it's religion, because parents are very much, because of religious beliefs, they don't want their kids learning things because they're afraid that their kids will be tempted to do it. They're afraid that their kids will, I don't know, if they know that they have this weird idea that it's somehow giving permission to kids to have sex. It's like, no one needs to give kids permission to have sex. It's the same opposition to teenagers getting birth control or having access to condoms. So I think it's giving them permission to have sex. No, they're gonna have sex regardless.
But it's going to lead to anarchy.
They're gonna do it.
I think it's even deeper than a religious argument. I literally think it's almost the American way, where it's like, how can you impose a certain idea of an idea? Like, how can you impose this on me? That's the American way. Like, you feel this entitlement to your own.
Well, the problem is
personal responsibility.
It's rooted in Puritan ideals regarding sex, which is simply, we don't talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, that means it's not a problem, right? Except no, that's never been the case. And you mix that in with religion, because there are people who have those views who aren't religious. I mean, we're very much a society that is still dominated by a sort of religious moral ideology when it comes to sex and when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, people in Europe, they are much more open about this kind of thing. And it's not like yes, they're less religious, but they've got religion everywhere around them too. You know? I mean, they've got their huge grand cathedrals and stuff that have been there for 1,000 years and everything else. And, I mean, you go back like a couple generations and every single one of them was a devout Christian who would gasp in horror at the thought of, I don't know, whatever, of their kids not being Christian,
Mm-hmm. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I do think it's an American problem, not exclusively religious. Because one thing that I remember that comes to mind is Charlie Gard, which was a huge issue. I think either earlier this year or late last year, which had this little baby in the UK. The medical professionals were saying we can't do anything more for this baby. He has a terminal illness, and unfortunately, we have to end this treatment. And his parents were saying, "No, we need this option. We believe that there's something that can be done." And so they transferred his treatment over to the U.S. because
they tried to, yeah.
Or they tried, but in terms of polling, there was a disparity between Americans and the British.
That's because. I think that's largely because of how Americans treat their children and how they view their children, as opposed to how Europeans view their children. So, for instance, in their legal system, children have a court-appointed advocate. When there's a suspicion that the child's interests may not be properly taken into account. We don't have anything like that here in the U.S. Because the assumption is the kid belongs to the parent and the parent has complete say over what they do.
Right.
And that's the main viewpoint difference. And that also goes into the sex ed thing. Because parents believe they should have complete control over what their children learn. And so, you see a lot of people upset about their kids learning this or that at school. Never mind that it's the curriculum. Never mind that that's, everybody learns that they need to learn that.
Yeah.
Well, they get upset over it because they didn't want their kids learning it. So they try to pull their kids out of school. They try to send them to a private school, or they homeschool them, etc. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's even like similar, like when it comes to like science, even, like how there's some families that don't believe in evolution, but what school usually tries to do, like high school and previous schooling tries to do, is also help these kids get prepared to go to college. And you can't go to college and deny the evolution as being like science and scientific fact and theory, because that's dangerous. Like you couldn't have a kid go into like biology.
On what you go into.
Yeah,
depending on what you end up studying.
Yeah, I guess
English
so.
major,
Yeah,
there's no problem.
yeah, but what I'm saying though is, if you go into biology specifically, and then you're denying, scientific fact in biology, you can't have that. So this is what schools are trying to educate these kids to be able to go and do in their future, in college and further. And yet you can't have the parents dictating what these kids can and can't learn, because that can set them up to, fail later on in life. And apparently it does a lot of the time. These kids, just, I don't know, they just don't fit in college because they've learned that these certain things are the case from their parents, and they're not, and they go to college and now they're upset when different things are being told to them, and I don't know.
Yeah. It's a mess. There's no parity. There's just no parity. But even between, like, when it comes to the level of education a child receives, for some reason, it's just acceptable that some schools are better than others in this country. Whereas just like, however, like all schools should be performing at a high rate. We just kind of lay down and accept the fact that, just some schools are just higher performers. And it's like, no, there needs to be a standard for all schools to make sure that the turnout within this country is better for everyone. And because that's just going to help the whole country out in the long run. You don't want this you don't want this disparity between especially when it comes to education, because that can lead to so many other disparities within adulthood. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I think we're a little off topic, but but
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have more to add with these stories, or should we move on to
just that it's a problem in the United States that there is a certain subset of men and women who feel that violence is an acceptable answer to being told no.
Yeah.
And I add women because occasionally you do get a woman who reacts violently, but let's be honest, that's kind of rare.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of that has to do with how we're taught to react to things as children. Women are very much encouraged to express their upset in other ways, whereas men are usually steered towards violence as a reaction.
And being outspoken, women are more taught in our society to be quiet about like their things, and men are encouraged to be more outspoken and
usually. Let's put it this way. Generally speaking, women are taught that if someone says no to you, it must be your fault. And men are usually taught that if someone says no to you, it's their fault.
Okay.
So when women tend to have violent reactions to being told no, they usually direct that violence at themselves.
Okay.
That's an unfortunate truth. And that's a tendency, of course. It's not, whatever, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Trends do not equal everything. So there's always exceptions.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on?
Yeah, I suppose. I guess, Jordan, you had a story to bring due, didn't you?
I do. So apparently, Bernie Sanders, he's on his crusade to rail in these these billion dollar companies and the people who run them to finally pay their fair share. And so so this time Bernie has turned his attention towards Amazon and Jeff Bezos, who is the owner
snap.
of that corporation. Yes. So earlier this week, he sent out an email blast to all his supporters, pretty much letting them know that Amazon, owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, has unprecedented levels of wealth. He is the wealthiest person on the planet. He's worth over $150 billion. And just to let you know, that is 55 billion more than Bill Gates, who was regarded as the richest person on the planet until Jeff Bezos. Well, up until now. And so he was he just highlighted some issues with Jeff Bezos' practices in Amazon as a company, and which include a subset of their employees who have to go on public assistance because of the lack of wages that they earn working for Amazon, and how Jeff Bezos' wealth just continues to exceed beyond expectation, and how he has no interest in applying any of that towards the betterment of his own employees, and instead forces the taxpayer and forces regular citizens like us, middle class and down the line, to pay for their employees, to pretty much supplement what Amazon is not giving them in wages.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and so Bernie and a lot of us are just tired of it.
Yeah,
and he also highlights how Jeff Bezos has a pet project, and it has to do with space travel. That's essentially his passion project. That's, aside from Amazon, that is the thing that he focuses most of his attention on. And so Bernie hit back and he said, I love this. He said, quote, "Well, here's a radical idea." And I love when he does that. But he says, "Instead of attempting to explore Mars or go to the moon, how about Jeff Bezos pays his workers a living wage? How about he improves the working conditions at Amazon warehouses across the country so people stop dying on the job?" And he goes on to say he can no doubt do that and have billions of dollars left over to spend on anything he wants. And he was alluding to the fact that earlier this year and last year, Amazon employees came out to speak out against poor working conditions within their facilities. How there isn't any air conditioning in some of their facilities, and how they are put on they're timed during their bathroom breaks. Then there's just this insane level of just I guess what's the word for it?
Yeah, I know. We actually touched on a little bit about Amazon recently, didn't we? Like, we had a story where we were talking about how the wealthy are doing so much better than the lower classes and everything, and Amazon was on there. And actually, according to that story, from what I remember, they were actually one of the lesser of the group, where like it was all about how much the CEO gets paid versus the average income of the rest of the employees of the company. And Amazon was somehow like doing better than most other companies, where they were only doing like 100 and something times more than the average worker, whereas there's other companies that are doing 1,000 times more. Like the CEO makes 1,000 something times more than the average employee. And like, that's interesting. And now that we're seeing that Jeff Bezos is actually one of the wealthiest people in the country, and yet like his workers are on food stamps basically, and on general assistance from the government. So even that article couldn't even like explain the disparity that we're seeing in the wealthy in this country. Like like I said earlier, that sounds familiar because it's exactly the same thing that happened recently from reporting of even TYT and other progressive groups were talking about this in regards to Walmart. Walmart's employees are infamous in having to actually apply for food stamps and general assistance while they're working full time at Walmart. And not only just the regular employees, but managers at their stores have to be on welfare, on these welfare programs, and they're encouraged to apply for these programs by the higher-ups in Walmart. And they are basically subsidizing their nefarious, disgusting practices of not paying their workers a livable wage with the government assistance programs. And it's the same thing apparently here with Amazon. It's just horrible. That's just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, and I think what's hilarious is so in a PR stunt, Amazon is kind of pulling out all the stops in order to look good because they pretty much in terms of their employee treatment, it's been pretty bad for the last 2 years, press wise. And so right now they're having like this. They're inviting people to take tours within their fulfillment center, and the one thing that cracks me up is 14 Twitter accounts just mysteriously and suddenly appeared last week, just pretty much praising Amazon for their employee treatment, and they were calling themselves and Amazon was calling them FC ambassadors,
What?
and they were sharing like how they receive they receive bathroom breaks, and the temperature's fine, all the things that actual workers were complaining about.
Oh yeah, the bathroom, we get really good bathroom breaks here, and the air conditioning is really good, and we're totally not getting paid to say this. Please believe us. We're not getting paid to say this at all. Not at all.
Oh yeah, but it's interesting you said that because Yahoo, a reporter with Yahoo, has found that those FC ambassadors weren't actually volunteers.
Of course they were. Come on.
However, they were being rewarded with Amazon gift cards and an extra day off.
Of course they were. I mean, come on. Like they're oh god, there's got to be something. There's always something. This is complete and utter BS, and obviously they're just paying these people to say this crap. It's kind of like the Republican Party where they get random people to suddenly change shape. What was her name? Candace Owens. Candace Owens was actually more on the left wing side of things a few months, maybe a year ago or something like that, maybe 2 years ago. She was a left-wing blogger. And then suddenly, she just all of a sudden changed sides randomly, of course. And now she's super on the Trump bandwagon and the GOP bandwagon. And it's just interesting how that works. It's just these people are getting paid to say these things, and it's just so obvious, Yeah. And the reporting apparently shows that, It's just a tactic that the right wing pulls because they can't win on the merits. They cannot win on the ideology anymore. They have to lie to us. That's the only way they actually stay competitive. That and obviously major voting suppression. But those are the two avenues that the right wing in this country has now: voter suppression and lying their fucking asses off and never admitting to it, and just always being on the offensive and never ever trying to defend a position. That's the playbook for them. They never defend; they always attack, and that is something that started under Reagan, with what's his name? Roger Stone was a big person that started that trend. He was in the forefront of that during the Reagan years, and even in Nixon years. I believe he was also smaller in those years, but he was an up and comer during that time. And wouldn't you know it, Roger Stone is a big contributor to InfoWars with Mr. Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been integral with recent Republican politics. And so, it's just a playbook on the right. It's just attack, 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 never defend anything, and just lie, lie, lie. So it's just interesting how it works. That's all I'm saying. It's just interesting. But yeah.
That was my story.
That's always fun times. The last story I wanted to bring up was there was another shooting this weekend, or this past weekend, Sunday of last week, I believe August 26th. Let's pull my notes up real quick because I actually took notes because I'm actually trying to do a little bit better on this. There was actually a shooting in Jacksonville, Florida on Sunday, August 26th at a Madden video game tournament in Florida. Like I said, apparently 2 people were murdered in this instance, and 10 people were injured by gunshots, 1 by non-gunshot injuries, and the shooter himself actually killed himself in this engagement. The shooter was a man named David Katz. He's a 24-year-old. Apparently, this man has been in the Madden gaming tournament scene for a few years now. His gamer tag is Bread, and he had won a few Madden tournaments back in 2017. One tournament he won in was the Madden 2017 Bills Championship. At the time, he even took a photo with one of the Bills players, like an actual Bills player in the team. They had it on on Twitter. They said, "Oh yeah, it's great! Congratulations to David Katz on his victory and stuff." After he won this tournament, he was interviewed, and he said of himself, quote, "I think personally I'm one of the best players." He's quite a humble guy, right? I mean, he's pretty humble. He doesn't have a chip on his shoulder or anything.
How many people participating in these esport tournaments are like not just complete? Fair point.
but yeah, he was full of himself. But I'm just saying. But I guess going into his history before he got into that tournament, even in 2006, his parents went through a very bitter divorce where both parents were fighting for custody of him, and there might be other siblings. I didn't really look into that, but one of the quotes that the father had in dealing with David Katz's medications leads me to think that there were more children than just him. I didn't really look enough into that part though. But during this time, his parents got divorced. David started getting put onto antidepressants and even an antipsychotic drug. This antipsychotic drug was a drug used to treat schizophrenia in people. And so, unfortunately, his father was very opposed to these medications for his son. His father, Richard Katz, once said about the possibility that his son may have schizophrenia that he, quote, has seen no evidence whatsoever of schizophrenia in David Katz. David seems well aware of reality at all times. He also
not what schizophrenia means.
Yeah, well, probably not. But of course, like people don't really understand these mental illnesses very well. I think we can all understand.
There's also usually a lot of denial from parents who don't want to admit that their kids aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Or that they might have something wrong with them, because that's of course what it means to be need mental health treatment, right?
Yeah. But going on though, like he also said about the antidepressants that he was put on, he had 2 different antidepressants and 1 psychotic or antipsychotic. On the antidepressants specifically, he said, quote, that they pose significant and unknown risks to the children. So this is why I think there might be more than just David. I didn't really see more on that other than that. So there might have been David and his siblings were also being given antidepressants in relation maybe to the divorce, because it was so vicious apparently between the parents. I
just, honestly, I don't even care. Like the car, like
everyone
person,
wants to. Yeah, everybody is always looking for an excuse as to why they snapped or why they did what they did. And especially when it's a white young man, because oh my goodness, that can't be that he was just wanted to kill some people, or that he there was whatever. We have to find an excuse. We have to explain why he's an exception and why it's not really his fault or it's not society's fault.
right?
Like all this talk about his parents' divorce, it just seems to me like we're trying to blame the parents for what the kid did.
I don't necessarily see it that way necessarily when we're trying to understand why or the motivations for someone doing these things. I think it's more that we can learn what had
How
gone
many
into
people
this and
have had parents go through vicious divorces and they don't turn around and kill people? Divorce is
obviously
super
true,
common
yeah.
in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. And also honestly, how much are we really going to get out of trying to evaluate every particular individual assailant within these mass shootings?
Yeah.
I feel like it's not.
The number
we've
one
tried that
problem
before.
here
It doesn't get as far.
is that this person did have some things that should make people think twice about selling him a gun in his background, and they sold him a gun anyway.
Yeah.
But
That's the problem.
That's fair. That's very, very fair points. But I'm just saying though, I don't necessarily think that they're trying to pin all of the blame on the parents for this. It's just that this may have had a factor in his psyche going into this. I think is more of what it is. It's not that this is the one thing. If this didn't happen, then none of this rest of this would have happened, kind of thing. I don't think that's necessarily what they're saying. It's just more that these things did have a factor in what happened potentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah.
You can say that for every serial killer out there.
And
there are very
it's probably
few
true.
Serial killers who had, amazingly rosy childhoods. Most of them were abused, sexually molested, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a factor, but that doesn't excuse what they did.
No, of course not.
Right.
I don't think that's what they're trying to do either, though, with that.
And with this focus on it within the public eye specifically makes it feel like they're trying to distract.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to find blame.
No, I agree, because when I I guess what I'm trying to get out of this is how can we apply this towards preventing the next mass shooting? And this type of information just doesn't seem very applicable to me. I think there's much more important information there, or important information that we can extract from this, and more important dialogue that we can have in light of this, that we can apply to maybe preventing the next shooting of this nature. But this doesn't help. These conversations just don't help.
I don't necessarily agree with that myself.
It distracts from the actual problem.
I think it's all valid. I think everything needs to be understood, and all of it is valid to talk about at the very least, and scrutinize in some way. But
that's just that whole what's his name that shot up Sandy Hook? Oh, he played Gears of War. How many millions of Americans played Gears of War and they didn't go shoot up a school?
Well, that's obviously something completely different.
I know, but that's my point. It's the similar thing. How many millions of Americans had their parents go through a nasty divorce and they haven't gone and shot up anyone?
Yeah. And I said that
it's the same sort of distraction.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's your response to everything. But
I'm not trying to like sit and definitively say, "Oh, you're definitely wrong," or "I'm definitely right," or something like that. That's why I say maybe. I don't know
definitely agree with Jordan that this kind of total evaluation of his entire life story is not helpful. It's just.
I would disagree with that.
People blame the medication. People blame his parents for the divorce. People blame all kinds of things. People blame him losing the tournament. And that's not the reason. The reason is this guy, he brought a gun with him from Maryland to Florida. He had it out in his vehicle. It was, I mean, his fellow tournament players said that they thought it was premeditated. I mean, who knows?
Well, we're going to get into that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, the conversation seems it's a lot simpler. It's if this guy didn't have a gun, it would have never happened.
Yeah,
I mean, and then from there, let's talk about how we can prevent people who are unfit to carry from carrying. It's, to me, it just seems so simple, but like taking it from I don't know, kind of personalizing the every mass shooting and trying to
and especially when you turn him into a pitiable character that we feel pity for. Mm-hmm. I mean, he decided to basically go out and shoot a bunch of people and then turn the gun on himself and shoot himself.
Well, the reason why it can be important to understand and even pity your these monsters is that like it humanizes them, and when we humanize these people, we can then start realizing, oh, actually anyone can actually do these things sometimes.
That's not the net effect, though. Some people have that response. Some people like you have that response. Other people have the response that, oh, well, he was just a poor kid. It wasn't really his fault. It was other people's fault. It was the medication's fault. It wasn't really his fault. He shouldn't be held accountable for his actions. And that's the usual net result. And that's been the case over and over and over again with every mass shooting.
And, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not important to look into these things because people don't read the situation the way we want them to. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. And I certainly see your point, Chris, for sure. I just think we're just but once again, all we're doing is distracting from the real issue, and it's just going to continue to happen. We're going to have this conversation again.
Yeah.
I don't know. We may or may not have even the same the same discussion we're having right now. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is nothing's going to change.
Yeah. But now I guess we should get into the details of the actual event, since we've kind of went into this history first. But according to the reports from what I've seen, David lost a game in the tournament that day, and people said he was noticeably angry. And then sometime later, he came back to the tournament area with at least one weapon. And from what it seems like, there was actual live stream footage. This was being live streamed on Twitch at the time. And in one of the cameras, you can actually see one of the contestants playing, and you see in the video, I think a lot of the video that's out right now has been edited where you can't actually see. There's actually a laser that comes onto the one contestant's body. You can see it like fluttering around on the kid's chest. This laser light from his weapon, and then the video cuts off of these people, these players in the tournament, and all of a sudden you start hearing gunshots ringing out. And at one point in the video, or in the sound really, you can hear one of the victims say, like, shout out, "Oh fuck, what did he shoot me with?" And then you hear like blood curdling screams and stuff from other people in the background and everything. It's insane. Thankfully, that victim, Tony Montanino, who is recorded saying, "Oh fuck, what did he shoot me with?" survived, and he's doing fine. He did live, but One thing that I did notice, though, in this, in looking into this, one of the live streamers, the person that you see in the footage, that they actually do show that there's actually a laser pointer on the kid before he gets shot, is one of the people that did. I believe it hasn't been confirmed, but it does look like one of the people that was killed in this incident. So there were two people that were slain in the attack. Eli Trueboy Clayton, who was 22, and this is, I believe, the person that is pictured in the video with the laser light on him moments before he's executed by this child. And there's also Taylor Stop Me.
24-year-old child.
Well, he's a child to me, but he's an asshole. I'm sorry, he's not a child. He's an adult. There's also Taylor Stop Me Please Robertson was also murdered. He was 27. So both of these people were at the tournament competing, and they were brutally murdered by this kid. I haven't confirmed it yet. Like I said, that one person is Eli Clayton that's in the video, but like from what it looks like to me, it looks like the same person as what I've seen in other reports as being Eli Clayton. So that is unconfirmed. But I do have some audio from one of the participants from the event. He was actually talking to a reporter after the fact. This guy actually says in here that he was one of the people that actually beat the kid that
Why don't you
did
just
this.
play it?
Yeah, let's get into it. I have 3 different clips. They're like a minute long each. I just wanted to preface it and get into it. Just calm down. So here's the first clip.
Came out here to compete in the Madden tournament. Yeah.
And from your vantage point, what happened in there?
I don't know. We were competing, we were playing, and then I said one of the guys, he's pretty known in the Madden community. He plays, like we all compete against each other online. EA Sports, they have like these little tournaments and ladders that they do. He's a well-known, competitor. I don't know. Like I said, I guess he just came and shot up the place. It seems like it was premeditated. I don't think it has anything to do with him losing or who he lost to, because he lost twice throughout the tournament. I was actually one of the people that beat him. And there was another guy, Bugs, who beat him. And we're both still here. So I felt like he was targeted, but I don't think it was the people that beat him.
So that's the first clip that I have. That's his read of the situation, at least right after the fact. He doesn't think that it was premeditated because, if it were,
he thought it was premeditated.
I'm sorry. He thought it was premeditated because if it were a spur of the moment thing where he was just angry at the people that beat him, he would probably have been one of the very first people that would have been shot because he actually beat him in the tournament. And that's horrible to think. Like, in his situation, you just beat this kid in the tournament and then he goes and shoots up the place. Like, I don't know what that does to you mentally as a person. But I know I have 2 other clips. I don't know if you guys wanted to comment on that section of it, at least for now, before I go on to the next parts.
I'm just want to hear the rest.
The next few parts are he goes into more in depth on why he was there and what he thinks happened and the aftermath and all that. So here we go.
Do you have any idea what may have been the motivation behind that?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe some past. There's a lot of trash talking that happens online. So maybe, I don't know. But again, I doubt it was specifically him beating or him losing because, he lost to specifically 2 people. And, thankfully, we're both here. Unfortunately, some others aren't.
What exactly did you see in the way of him coming in
he
shooting?
was weird all weekend, man. He had shades on. He didn't speak to anybody. Even after we played, I beat him. I went to shake his hand and tell him good game, and he just looked at me. He didn't say anything. came here. I mean, it's 2 days. Today was the second day of competitions. He had on basically the same outfit he had on the day before. So, I mean, that was kind of weird, I thought. So it's like, I mean, I feel like he came planned. I mean, obviously you don't need to change the clothes if you already were preparing to do something like that.
So that's a really interesting piece of information, that the guy didn't even change his clothes. 2 different days, and he's in the same exact outfit. That's really weird. That's a very strange thing for anyone to do, I think. But I mean, I don't know. You really can't say that that's like a like something that you can say. Oh, you see that he didn't ever change his clothes, therefore, you know, we should have known that something was going to happen. You can't really surmise anything from that, unfortunately. But like, it is really, really weird at the very least, right?
I mean, yeah, go for it.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna agree that it's kind of weird, and it makes it. I don't. He brought his gun with him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it wasn't something he bought locally. It was something he brought with him from Maryland. And
I should say, yeah, he's originally from Baltimore, Maryland. That's where he lives. And this tournament was in Jacksonville, Florida. So he was only there for the tournament itself. And why would you bring a weapon to that? You know, like that's really weird. But you know,
especially because you know you're not allowed to bring them into the tournament anyway.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean,
it's a curious thing that kind of makes you go, well, why did he do that?
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's hard to
I'd be
say
curious to know if he left any notes places or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess in the coming weeks we'll probably find out more going forward. But I'd actually even imagine like there could be something to do with like our gun culture in America these days, where like a lot of people, especially from the South, think that it's okay to bring like an AK-47 into a McDonald's, you know, with them, you know, to order Big Macs. You know, it's just like there's some weird cultural phenomenon going on in this country around guns that's just like really unhealthy in a lot of ways. And I mean, I'm not saying that that's why he brought the guns with him. It's very, very possible that this kid had a premeditated plan to like have a suicide, attack go on during this visit, but we don't know that entirely either. We don't know necessarily what exactly was motivating this kid to do what he did.
Yeah.
So, if you want to add something, Jordan, before I get to the last clip.
Oh no, just just go on.
All right. This is just the last part of the interview that I found. This was from the World News YouTube channel. They also have a website at worldnews.com, I think, or something. But here it is.
Could you tell how many shots or what kind of weapon this was?
There was a bunch of shots. I mean, probably like 10. I don't know the weapon. I know it had an infrared laser on it. It pointed my way. I took cover. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got for you.
How long were you stuck in there for?
And the place? I mean, I don't know. Probably about an hour, 40 minutes before cops or somebody came and got us out. I felt like forever. I can't give you a real time, man, but it felt like forever, to be honest with you.
So this was a weekend event?
Oh, you mean how long I was out here? Yeah, this was a weekend event. I came in Friday, supposed to fly out tomorrow, so, yeah.
And then in terms of just people injured, did you happen to see any of that happening?
Yeah, I seen some good people dead, man. I seen people on the floor dead, so, yeah. People that I knew, people that I'm friends with, talked to, compete with online. Seen people dead, seen people shot, seen people injured. It's a horrific scene, really.
And when you saw that, just what goes through your mind? Could you just even begin to put that into words?
Nah, you can't put it into words. It's not stuff you see in movies, man. It's not. Yeah. There's no words for it. There's no really place in this world for it. So it's like, man, yeah. But I'm good, man. I'm done.
So,
sounds like he's slightly in shock still.
Yeah, I would say so. I can't imagine witnessing something like that firsthand, like right in the thick of it. You know, like you said, he actually saw the laser come his way, and so he ducked for cover after that point. So I mean, it seems really that's crazy to fathom what that could be like to someone, you know. Can't imagine what he would be going through. And I mean, it sounds like him and most of these players, even this the kid that did the shooting, were in a very seems like a close-knit community that like played Madden online with each other all the time, like regularly, and they went to these tournaments together all the time regularly, and they knew each other. You know, and it's crazy to think that some of the people that you've gone to tournaments with and you've played online with on a regular basis are now dead. And it's just...
Well, and that's probably also why he made that comment about premeditated.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he knew this guy.
Yeah, he might know more than we do on this guy's habits and his way of being outside of this tournament.
So, I mean, he probably suspects that someone in the group pissed him off to the point where he decided he was going to kill him.
Yeah, it is very possible. It's a very disturbing situation. And obviously, of course, Fox News is already saying, oh, you see this? It's a violence at a video game tournament. Does that mean that video games are too violent? This is a football game. It's a football game.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that argument doesn't.
If Madden is too violent, then I tell you what, we need to ban football.
But it desensitizes our children from violence, and therefore it's the video games' fault. It's totally not the guns' fault being in society at all. Don't look at those. Don't pay attention to that. It's the video games. That's what it is. You know, it's just interesting how they always gravitate towards the same bullshit arguments. They've been having this argument since Columbine, and probably even before that time, about like how video games are the problem, and it's the video games that are making our children murderous and violent.
That was Jack Thompson's shtick back in the 90s.
Oh yeah?
You know, he had his big vendetta against Grand Theft Auto. Remember that?
I can't remember too much of it anymore, but yeah, it was so long ago.
Yeah, he ended up kind of fading into obscurity after he lost that court case, the Supreme Court case, where it was decided that video games fall under First Amendment rights, free speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like we're sitting here going, the courts have already ruled on this, guys. What are you going on about?
Yeah, it's silly how they keep on bringing up the same stale arguments over and over again. Yep. I just don't.
For the
understand
record,
it all.
I would cheerfully wait for Jack Thompson to die of natural causes and then go dance on his grave.
Wow. Jeez.
Like I said, I will wait for him to die of natural causes, and then I will find his grave and I will go dance on it.
How about Scalia's grave? You going to dance on his? What about McCain?
No. Just Jack Thompson has a special place in my heart for a special bit of rage.
I guess so. Jeez.
Yeah. You don't mess with my video games.
Don't piss off Aubrey. Jeez. Ooh.
I will dance on your grave after you die of a natural death.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the stories that I had for the week. I don't know if you had anything to add for this, Jordan, before we wrap this one up and get out of here.
No, I'm sorry. You know, I've said everything.
Were you a Madden player, Jordan, at all?
Back in the day, I was.
Me too, actually. Like when I was a kid, like that was the rage. You know, like it was all cool to be into Madden for a long time, and I used to play that when I was a kid. You know, with all my friends. Certainly. It's crazy, but yeah. Did it ever, Jordan? Let's just think about this really calmly. Without anything getting really upset here. Did it ever make you want to go and shoot up anything playing Madden?
You know what? Before
Added.
you said anything, I was gonna say no, Chris. Think real long and hard before you open your
I
mouth.
couldn't
Are you sure you want to say whatever you're about to say?
Well, whatever. But anyway, yeah, it's just it's silly to think that would actually make someone violent enough to murder another human being. It's just
Video games were
just
my escape.
annoys me.
They were my escape from, the stresses of life, and particularly work. I'd go home and I'd play a PS2 game called Trapped, where you would lure people into these medieval-style torture devices that would kill them in brutal, horrible ways. And I would just imagine those were my coworkers, and I'd feel a lot better.
All I can say is do not get on Aubrey's bad side. Holy crap. Jeez. Oh my goodness. This is horrible.
In my defense, I was being harassed at the time.
Yeah, that might do it.
By my coworkers.
But yeah.
But I couldn't quit because I needed to pay bills.
Yeah. Kind of a downer week there, guys. There's a lot of really messed up stuff in the news this week.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Oh man. It's amazing what this world has in store for us these days.
I do have good news.
Oh yeah?
Ooh.
2 Point Hospital came out, and it's a great game.
Oh great. Who cares? But anyway, if you guys are interested, that game's out there, I guess. Whatever that is, 2 Point Hospital. I guess it's sort of like a Sim City kind of thing where you're building a hospital or something like that, I think, from what I know of it.
Yeah, you've got all kinds of great diseases and stuff.
Oh,
like
so it's not all peachy
where,
and rosy. You're killing people.
Well, sometimes. And then their ghosts come back and haunt the hospital, and you have to send a janitor to go clean it up.
See, this is the thing with Aubrey. She used to torture Sims in the Sims all the time too.
Yeah, whatever. Who hasn't? But so there's this funny disease called pandemic, where they literally have a pot stuck on their head.
Pandemic. Oh man.
And there's also I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's lightheadedness. And their head is literally a light bulb.
I was actually going to say that. So shocking.
There's a lot of great stuff like that too. Yeah, there's monobrow, where there's actually a little mono beast that has to be carefully removed and placed in a secure container. And then if they escape, they will then haunt your hospital forever. It's really annoying.
Wow.
Yeah, they escape a lot.
10 out of 10
My
gameplay.
staff isn't very good at,
10 out of 10.
It's actually a lot of fun.
Again.
Yeah, well, you can shoot the mono beasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They like to hide under trash cans and vending machines.
Well, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
But with that, guys,
right.
If you're interested in that, go and check that out, I guess. We're not sponsored by them at all, but you guys can check us out on Facebook. We got a Facebook. We are on YouTube. You can listen to our podcast on YouTube. You can find us on iTunes. Give us a review and what is it? 5 stars? Give us some stars, man. It'll help us out here. And we have a Patreon if you want to throw some money our way and help us keep this thing running. We are not opposed to that as well. We would definitely thank you. We have 2 contributors right now, Fred Picknally and David Abraham, and I definitely appreciate both of them very much. And you guys out there have a great week, and we should be back here next week with Michael, and we will be continuing on our discussion last week that we were supposed to continue this week, but extenuating circumstances got in the way, and this is happening this week. But you guys have a great week, and we will definitely catch you next week.
Okay, cheers.
Bye-bye.